I can't even say.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Françoise.
Au revoir.
Guy.
J'ai
Madame.
une umbrella.
Les parapluies de Cherbourg. La 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 la. Welcome back to another episode of Showgaze.
Back at it again.
A movie musical podcast in which we watch everyone's favorite 1964 opera film.
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
All of them. The many that came out in 1964.
Yeah.
God, that was such a year for opera films.
I think we should say up top that we are recording this ahead of time to have some
Yes.
to have an episode in the bank because we're doing some new releases for the holidays that we want to make sure, just in case we screw up the timeline. Just because we historically had a bit of an issue with saying things that by the time the episode got released were wildly out of sync with what was happening. And I feel like we've avoided that recently, mostly due to recording much closer to the release date.
Much closer.
And I'm getting a little nervous. That this is like a full month and a half before this is supposed to come out. That who knows?
Currently, Joe Biden is healthy.
Yes, and we hope
He's
that's
alive.
the truth.
Currently, Donald Trump is not in prison.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just getting all the big ones out of the way.
Yeah.
Anything could change. RJ, how are you? How are you enjoying your white wine with your brie?
I am enjoying it. Thank you very much. I am enjoying a lovely brie that was in a can. Very interesting. Some fig jam.
What does that mean?
It was like, so it's
Like in a little flat can?
It's in a wrapper and then a flat can and then a box.
Like a little tuna, like a tuna
Like
can.
a tuna can, yeah.
Mm.
But it wasn't like sealed. Like it wasn't
No,
like
it
you had to
was-
like, what do you mean?
It's like that. You see the can right there? You have to,
Oh,
yeah.
vacuum packed.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's delicious.
course it is.
After tonight's movie, we watched it tonight before
did.
recording. And then in the like few minutes before, I was like, I'm gonna run to the liquor store next door and get some wine and cheese.
And I got Ben and Jerry's.
I got Ben and Jerry.
Ben and Jerry.
So
Adam,
much
how are
for
you?
I'm well, thank you. I just said I'm eating Ben and Jerry, so I'm feeling great. It's the end of the year. It's coming up on the end of the year.
Mhm.
It's that really, I am all for an America that gives up on anything from Thanksgiving to New Year's.
Yeah.
I think the whole country should just be like done because nobody's actually working. And so many people are like fake working.
Fake working.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, can you guys is there any way you can sneak this in before the end of year? No, girl.
My job is all like projects right now that are just like time fillers. Like it's just like, oh, can you organize this? And I'm like, sure. Sounds good. It's fine. Molly.
I'm
How are
great.
you?
Marie.
Marie. I'm going home next week for the holidays, so I'm excited. It's going to be my first time, I believe, maybe my second time going back to the Midwest since moving out to California. So
Will you return to the cabin like
I
you
will
did
be
last?
returning to the cabin. And a little nervous for the re-exposure to the cold, but by the time that this comes out, I will have, gone through it, faced it. So yeah, it should be fun to go back.
It's not too bad right now. I'll be honest. I mean, we're more south than I think where you're headed.
Very
but,
much so, yeah.
Right now it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like 40, whatever.
Sure.
Great. Do we have anything in the mailbox? I just want to check before we move on. I just want to make sure.
Nope.
Great. Continue not writing in, folks.
Again, we're recording
Jesus.
early. Maybe someone will have written in, but not at
Maybe.
the time of recording.
RJ, this week I was challenged to write a summary or to summarize the plot of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg in a minute or less.
Yes. And your time starts now.
Guy, a young mechanic who works at a garage, is madly in love with his girlfriend Genevieve. Her mother disapproves of their relationship, but Genevieve is convinced they are meant to be despite their ages and inexperience. When her mother, who owns an umbrella shop, is informed that she owes a large debt, Genevieve's mother hawks her pearl necklace to a young jewel dealer named Roland Cassar. Said that not in an American accent, who immediately has his eyes on Genevieve. When Guy is informed that he is to be drafted into the Algerian war, they are both distraught and spend their last night together in the throes of passion before he goes off to Algeria, which leaves Genevieve pregnant. His deployment is 2 years long, and in that time, she ends up being wooed by Roland Cassar and makes the pragmatic decision to marry him, much to her mother's encouragement. When Guy comes back from war, he is informed that Genevieve has moved on and married another man, much to his chagrin, and he ends up marrying his sickly, elderly aunt's caregiver, Madeline. When his aunt passes away, he uses the money left to him to open his own garage. 4 years later, he is married to Madeline and has a son with her. At the garage, Genevieve pulls up in a car with their daughter, Francoise, to get a fill-up. When they briefly reconnect, but move on in their separate ways, mutually deciding it's best to leave the past in the past, as they are both happy now.
Well, an extra 20 seconds on that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well,
I come to you today in apology for taking too long with that summary.
How dare you?
I clearly did not reread it before I read it out loud.
Yeah.
After writing it. So.
I was double checking the word chagrin in there because it's like embarrassment, but I guess it is kind of his embarrassment that she married somebody else, isn't it? Like he feels kind of.
Oh, is that what chagrin means?
It means it means distress or humiliation due to a failure.
Mm.
Well, so it's not right. Yeah.
What I shouldn't have said is
much to her encouragement.
Much to her encouragement.
Yeah. Due to her encouragement. Maybe.
Due to her encouragement is what I really meant. But or aided with her encouragement.
Mm-hmm. I would say
it wasn't only because
I'd say significantly due to the mother's encouragement. It's
sure.
a real
heavy hand.
It's emotional sort of situation.
Oh,
yes.
Come on, Sophie Treadwell.
Hello.
Treadwell, honey.
Now, this is our first non-host request of the year.
Yeah.
Of the year, yes.
This is Robbie. I would say listener of the pod, but he doesn't listen. So I actually don't even know why we're doing this request for him. But he did say I would like this movie, so that did get him points in getting it on the list.
Most people write it and say Molly won't like this movie. That's usually the reason that they're requesting it. So different.
And we asked Robbie if he wants to share what his background with the film is. So RJ, can you please read that?
Yes, I asked him what was his relationship to the musical and how he found the movie. He said, I sought out the movie after hearing that it was one of Greta Gerwig's visual inspirations for Barbie, as well as Damien Chazelle's inspiration for La La Land. It's one of his favorite films as well. And
it is his favorite film.
Wow.
His favorite.
It is his favorite movie.
I definitely see that. I definitely see the parallels to La La Land.
It's funny because we've now watched the two movies that influenced La La Land the most: American in Paris and The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Yeah. In
the span of a month.
Yeah. Outside of that, I don't really have a relationship other than Robbie was like, you should watch this movie. It's a movie musical. It's French. It's got lots of colors. I think you and Adam will really like it.
It does have lots of colors.
And here we are now. Molly, had you heard of this movie before?
I hadn't ever heard of it until we were in the discussion about the season planning. I don't even remember that it was a listener request. I thought for some reason we just were looking for like another international film.
Yes.
And so that we picked this one out of thin air. So I hadn't heard of it at all before this process.
I had only heard of Catherine Deneuve, the actress. That was the only kind of connection that I had.
Sure. Yeah, I had never seen this and never heard of it. I mean, I probably had read the title during the research for La La Land, but I wouldn't have any. I don't really click on any other stuff unless it's like specifically about the topic at hand.
It really is the way that our brains work too, that it's like there has to be something that gives a title meaning or else it'll just kind of like float past. It's like the thing of you'd never learned a word before and then you learn it and then you like see it everywhere. And it's like, well, you've been seeing the word. It just didn't mean anything to you. Right. And so it's that
like
sort
chagrin.
of same. Like chagrin.
Like chagrin. So you were constantly learning.
I also think chagrin is probably etymologically French.
It looks like it could be French for sure.
Can
I get the origin of the word, please?
Honey, she's French.
Oh, yes.
For rough skin.
Sure.
So that's what happened. That's how it worked. Okay. Well, here's some facts about this movie. It's not going to take long.
Yeah.
The film in French, I do want to let you know, is called Les Parapluies de Cherbourg. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It really, in English, just doesn't sound like a name of. It sounds like a painting more than it sounds like a movie.
Yeah. There is. I am thinking of a French painting that has like different multiple umbrellas and like a raining.
You're thinking of the rainy day painting in the Paris. It's
on Paris.
Is it in the Louvre? Or is it in the Musée d'Orsay? I don't remember. It's in one of them, but it's like super famous, or it might even be in the Art Institute. I don't remember. It's directed by Jacques Demy, written by Jacques Demy, produced by Mag Baudard. It stars Catherine Deneuve as Geneviève, Anne Vernon as her mother, Madame Emery, Nino Castelnuovo as the mechanic Guy or Guy, and Marc Michel as the guy she marries,
the jeweler,
Roland. The cinematography is by Jean Rabier. It is edited by Anne-Marie Cottret and Monique Tessier. Music is by Michel Legrand. Production companies are Park Film, Madeline Films, and Beta Film GmbH. Distributed by 20th Century Fox. It was released in France on February 19th, 1964. Its running time is 91 minutes.
Beautiful, gorgeous minutes.
Its language is French. I usually don't say this because it's normally English, but I do need to point out that the movie is fully in French. And the box office is 7.6 million. Million what? Who knows?
Oh, good
Million
point.
francs? Who knows? Because they adopted the euro in
a lot
the
like later
80s?
than this.
Oh, yeah.
I had to think.
Right, or the 90s.
Yeah, I don't.
And we are the only source of news for people, so we have to know. When did France adopt the euro?
I mean, they were one of the founders of the euro.
2000.
2002.
The euro was
That's
launched
wild.
in 1999. This says
The euro was launched.
the first 3 years it
99.
was an invisible currency. So 2002 is when it was
Okay,
like
so they-
actually
they-
used.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Euro.
So that's it.
Okay.
I can tell you that this is the other 3 notes I have is that this is the middle film of the Demy's romantic trilogy. The first film is Lola. The second is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And the last film is The Young Girls of Rochefort, which also stars Catherine Deneuve.
Are they all musicals? Operas? We don't know. But Lola's the name of the one that Roland's
First love.
first love was Lola.
Oh, maybe they're all connected by plot. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
They're definitely all. That said they're all tonally similar films.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think they're all musicals. But
It's like the Baz Luhrmann trilogy. Moulin
yes,
Rouge
or
and-
the Australian, the Glitter Cycle.
The Glitter Cycle.
Yeah.
I think the Glitter Cycle is not the same person though that made. I
It's
think
not the same person.
It's a genre that people put together after watching films rather than like an artistic trilogy.
This was a source of inspiration for La La Land, as I said. It's his favorite film. And then it did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 1964.
Ooh, wee.
And for the Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, Best Song, Best Original Score, Best Scoring, Best Original Score, Best Scoring, Adaptation or Treatment, and Best Screenplay, written directly for the screen.
I need the audience.
Which has to be Best Original Screenplay now.
I need the audience to know that Adam is reading from the smallest screenshot from Wikipedia.
Yeah. You really challenged yourself on this one.
He really had to squint his eyes.
That's it. That's all the notes I have.
That's all the herstory that you could find.
That's all the history. I'm sure if I was fluent in French, I could find French websites that are dedicated to this film, and yet I don't. And here we are. As we start this conversation about this film, I'd love, RJ, if you want to share what Robbie's general thoughts are about this movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Cinephile Robert.
He calls this a perfect Pisces movie for hopeless romance.
You know what? We don't need to.
We don't believe in the Zodiac on this podcast.
He loves a tragic love story. His favorite story of all time is Romeo and Juliet. You gotta stick to the classics.
They're classics for a reason.
Classics for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
He loves the cinematography of it. He says that Catherine Deneuve is gorgeous and incredible. and really regarded the snow scene at the gas station as one of his favorite scenes of all time in cinema, which I would agree. There was something it was a very beautiful scene. I'm sure we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. I don't think there's much to discuss.
There's really not much to discuss.
Yeah.
No. He says that French is very romantic. I would agree.
Just the language?
Just the language, I guess. He said French is so romantic. The entire time I watched this movie, I could imagine the scenes where Adam screams at the TV, covers his mouth, and cries at the beauty. The film makes me think about going to the movies with Adam and his truly amazing reactions. I'm so excited for him to watch it.
I hate to disappoint. I had no reactions watching this movie. I really sat in silence. Did I not?
You sit in solemn silence in
a dull, dark dock. In a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock.
Lifelong lock.
I do think because you did the research before watching it, I don't think you spoiled anything for yourself, but he was getting reactions. I'm like, oh, I think I know what this movie.
Before the pregnancy was revealed and they were like, you're sick. I was like,
I think that maybe we looked up like a 2-sentence plot summary when we were planning. I think I knew that going in as well. Yeah. But I definitely have had that before where I do research before we watch a movie for this. And then it puts you in a very intellectual headspace. It kind of helps, like it hinders you just emotionally sinking into the movie. Yeah.
Because you're trying to like pick stuff up as opposed to just like kind of experience it. I will say, like, even though you didn't have like the amazing reactions, you still reacted to like, oh my God, that looks amazing. That wallpaper, the colors, the shoes, like
the amount of time I talked about color in this movie was
color. Oh my God, we're gonna have to have a full.
This is the worst movie to have talked about in a audio podcast.
Yeah, it's
more than any other movie.
Extremely visual.
And the other thing I will say, I think my biggest reactions were like, this movie's really funny. Which I want, like a lot of the dialogue in quotes, obviously, a lot of the dialogue between like the mom and Genevieve is so like snarky. It's so funny. Yeah. And I was reading it, hearing how it would be said as like a sentence. It was so funny.
I also want to say though, this is like a really beautiful little description of you reacting to films. Oh, he's going to leave. So he's not going to hear me say that it seems really sweet that his friend is paying such close attention and finds such joy in Adam's reaction to movies. I think that's a very pure thing.
Robbie has the biggest Google heart eyes of friendship for Adam.
Yeah.
And Adam is like, he's the very like standoffish, cool guy. Like he's like, oh, I'm not affected by it. So that's kind of their dynamic.
Clearly,
you can
fully
feel
disengaged
that
from this. Yeah.
As he's fully
eating
not Jerry's,
not listening to anything we're saying.
Yeah, he'll just
Let's
come back.
Let's just say more nice things about Adam until he comes back, and he'll never know that we did it.
He'll never know he said it.
Adam is.
I would love to. I'm drawing a blank.
Adam is a delightful friend. He's a good energy to be around. He is very smart in a way that I think he doesn't give himself enough credit for.
Absolutely. I love that he's going to have to edit all of this and listen to all of this. He's going to magically disappear on that episode.
He's a quick
wit.
He's
fully making a cocktail, by the way, while we're in the middle of this recording.
He's not a consistent podcast host, but so many other things that we can appreciate about him.
It's too many podcasts in the world anyway. So
yeah, you know what? We should run this one into the ground. Really, is what we.
I was thinking
we are the source of all entertainment for
Wait,
there's no reason to listen to any other podcast.
You were able to hear all that?
Yes.
It's very loud.
So you couldn't.
It's very loud.
That's why he was avoiding it longer.
Oh, you're seeing how many nice things he could get me to say about you. I see your game now, sir.
Think about
Let me pour my whiskey.
Adam's also just drinking straight whiskey.
Sure am. I'm feeling very French.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think
Irish.
just like drinking things straight. Yeah.
That's just European.
Honey, that's Europe. America loves a cocktail. I mean, we invented her. We did.
Did we invent cocktails?
What was the first one? The Manhattan?
I don't know what the first one was, but I know we invented them.
That should be a musical.
During Prohibition.
But yes, thank you, Robbie. And
thank you, Robbie, for your kind words about my reactions. You're more than welcome to subscribe to the Boys Love Patreon, in which you can watch me react to things for $4 a month.
Wow. What an offer.
Okay. RJ, I feel like I started with you so far in this whole recording.
So I won't, Molly.
So RJ, what was your general feeling about this?
Big takeaways.
Yeah.
I love movies that the writing feels like it could take place on stage. And I felt that here very much. I loved all the scenes of Madame Emery and Genevieve so much, like their banter back and forth. It kept making me afraid that like she was either going to be really hard on her or like really chastise her, but they're very like similar, which it was really interesting to watch like a mother-daughter relationship in that way, where it's like actually accepting that like we are kind of in it together, so let's make this work, as opposed to like I'm your mother, I know. I mean, I think she's still like will like lecture her on stuff and like still nag her on stuff, but like they're all very much feels like I just have to say this because I'm your mother, but like let's figure this out or whatever. So I really liked all that dynamic and just all the very interior scenes in the shop and in the different apartments that I really vibed with the movie. And it's a great 90 minutes. I love a movie that I can just
get in, get out,
and get everything you need from the movie.
Yeah.
Molly, big takeaway.
I feel like we watch a lot of movies for this podcast where I enjoy the process of watching it, but I know that I won't remember it in a year's time. And this one felt very much like the opposite of, not that I didn't enjoy the process, but like it wasn't like joyful, upbeat, like that kind of thing, what you're used to from a movie musical. But I feel like I will think about it a lot in the future. Like it will kind of stick in my brain and be a reference. I see why it's the kind of movie that inspires other artists in ways, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh my God, visually amazing.
Oh my God. Every time you get the peep of like the shoes, because you don't think about it, and then all of a sudden you see that her shoes match what she's wearing, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. So that's incredible. And gosh, I'm really excited to talk about just the plot and how the movie resolves itself. I think it's such a non-American way of making a movie, and I think it's really interesting.
So French.
So French.
How many French movies have we seen? Like, what's our...
You mean movies that are
collectively
French or
like
movies that take place in France?
French cinema. Like, what's our...
I took French in high school, so I watched several movies in high school that were, I know we watched, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a very famous Vincent Cassel movie from like the early 2000s. And he plays like a disaffected youth on the outskirts of Paris. It's like it's like a movie that I've seen parodied in some places before, so I think it's like a known thing.
Standard.
Yeah. And we also watched one that was like it was actually also about the Algerian War. I remember it was like about soldiers during that time. I also watched The Three Triplets of Belleville in college, which is an animated French movie. Yeah, I would say I've seen, other than American or English, probably French is the other country that I've seen the most media from, I would guess.
Right. I had seen...
RJ and I cannot say the same.
Okay.
Oh
yeah. You have another country you're pretty invested in. Yeah.
Pretty heavily invested in. I had seen... a lot of my French growing up was Madeline. I loved the cartoon. I loved the movies. I had the books, like was obsessed with Madeline. To the point where as a kid, I was like, I want to learn French. I want to like go to France, blah, blah, blah. As far as like French films, I had seen 2 Days, 1 Night. Yes. It was a kind of like a very, slice of life drama with Marion Cotillard, very dramatic, about how like she's basically going like person to person in the factory job that she's working in order to like vote on a specific like union thing. Like I think it was one of those like either like stand strong all united or like someone's gonna get laid off. It was one of those, and it was very gritty, not in like a visual sense, but it's like it's literally just you are following this person going toward you know, person to person.
Did you see La Vie en Rose? Speaking of Marion, I
did. So I was gonna bring up La Vie en Rose, but I wasn't sure if like that was actually like was it made in France or was it? I thought
it was made in France, and it was that it was a foreign film that got a lot of American attention, and that's what got kind of the bridge into her U.S. career.
Right, okay, then that was kind of like the big one that I had watched. That first that obviously got me into the Marion Cotillard train.
Mm-hmm.
Is listen to 9 to learn more. And that was pretty much it. I think that's all the French films that I've seen.
I've seen The Red Balloon, which is not a feature-length film, but
It's like a short film.
It's like a short film. It's very sweet.
Film. Yeah.
Allons.
I have seen. There's a Gerard Depardieu film that I watched in French class in high school, in which he plays like a farmer in the country in like. I don't know.
Oh, and then it's like his daughter's like Manon or something.
Yes,
and yeah,
Manon.
I've totally watched that one. Yeah.
I've
Also
seen
in
that
school?
movie. And I watched a Joan of Arc film,
Mm.
and I watched. That might be it. We in French class in high school. We also just watched. She would play like the French version of like Hunchback of Notre Dame or Finding Nemo, or
okay.
Oh, just like a dub.
like
version.
stories we already know, but now we're gonna watch
but
it
in a French version.
Mhm.
Yeah, gotcha. I also watched this really cute movie one time in high school. I remember that was like a documentary about this guy who ran like a one-room schoolhouse in the countryside of France, and then he was gonna like retire, so no one else was gonna be able to keep the school going. And it's just this like very sweet story about this guy who just like cares about teaching these kids so much, and it was just like, oh, it was so good.
Oh, and I watched another one. It's a newer film, and it was actually just an American version was made a few years ago with Bryan Cranston. It's about a guy who's like paraplegic, and he hires like an urban youth to be his like caregiver or whatever, and it's about them like bonding or whatever. He's like really rich.
The
whatever.
American version was Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart.
And Kevin Hart,
Not
yes.
a youth, famously.
Not a youth.
But,
In the French one, it's like
A teen.
gotcha.
He's like maybe he's like 20.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. But that's like all the French movies I've seen. I have never seen any of them. When people talk about like French cinema, I think traditionally they talk about the really like black and white, super dramatic, like just staring out at the Seine, smoking a cigarette energy.
Yeah.
I've never seen any of those, but that is so emblematic of I think what people, especially like Americans think Americaners, okay, think a French film is. That whenever I watch a French film and it's not like super melancholy, I'm like, oh my god, that was so upbeat. Like kind of this movie, while there are definitely sad moments.
Yeah.
I left this movie being like, oh, okay. So I was doing the notes for this before I watched the movie, and I got to pulling the reviews, like the proper reviews, fine, because like I can just like pull out pieces that look like they're talking about the movie or whatever, or like actually having a critique of the film, and that's fine. But on Letterboxd, I started doing it, and I was like, I saw one that said, if you were sad at La La Land, you'll be Umbrellas of Cherbourg will kill you, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait. And also, like, I won't get any of the jokes, so I won't know which ones to pull until the end. So I'll do it afterward. But after I watched it, I was like, oh, I didn't cry at all at the end. And I cried so much at La La Land. And I understand that it's a similar sentiment that La La Land shares.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where they don't end up together. It's about
like we had our time.
We had our time and then it's over. But in this, and I don't know if it's like, they're not set up well enough, but I think they are, because I totally believe that they love each other.
The same sentiment, but I think it's less sentimental. I think that the film is not framing it in the same emotional way that it's framed in La La Land.
Yeah.
It's almost just like, it's just a part of life.
It's
you have a young love.
You have a young love, and then you do it.
What is it that Gen Z say? It be that way sometimes, or whatever.
It'd be like that.
It'd be like that. It'd be like that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
That's very much the ending.
That was very Molly being like, "How do you do, fellow kids?" with the skateboard.
Except that I was acknowledging that I wasn't going to get it
right. No cap. This movie is like La La Land.
No cap. This movie is lit. Lit is very much millennial slang, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Lit is millennial.
Lit is. Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about
La La Land now.
I'd love to talk about La La Land. I'd love to talk about something that I don't think is like super. It's baked into the themes of this movie, but something that I was like surprised by, or that I felt like the movie didn't dwell on to the same extent, was the class difference between the two gentlemen. In that,
Ronald and Guy.
Yeah, Guy is clearly working class. He's a mechanic. He's blue collar. And Roland is he's like a jewel broker.
Yeah.
It, like,
probably.
it reminded me of American in Paris a little bit. I mean, I don't think like what's his face was like rich, but he had he was like more of like a man of town.
Yeah.
Yes. As opposed to I don't remember his name anymore. The American in Paris.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting because it's not part of it. Like, you can tell the part of the reason the mom likes Roland over Guy is that he is like a professional.
Yeah. She never even met Guy.
No, she never meets him.
She doesn't even know who this guy is.
She doesn't know him. I just thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting because I kind of liked that. There's a good Golden Girls episode actually, in which is he a mechanic?
No, he just knows how to. He's a caterer.
Oh, he's a caterer. He's just like a handy
fixed
guy.
someone's car. Yeah, on their way to a date.
Right. And so she like ends up leaving him because she's like, she envisions herself as being with someone who's not blue collar.
He's not even a mechanic. He just knows how to fix a car, and so she breaks up with him.
Yes.
It's like a mirror. He's just like not as like classy as she thinks herself to be. And so she ends up breaking up with him. And it's like very much an episode where you're like, Blanche is wrong for doing this.
Yeah.
And it like sucks, but also like Blanche can't get married. That's the whole thing of the show.
Yeah.
She has to be able to sleep around. I have to go grab my inhaler.
Okay.
One moment. You can continue chatting.
I mean, with the class thing for me, it wasn't really until that last moment where she's driving off in like this very nice automobile. And then he's obviously like, even though he's the owner of the gas station.
Right.
There's something still like very visually like she is driving away in her very nice fur. I mean, as he like stands there.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's interesting that Adam felt like it didn't get discussed because in my mind it did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I guess I can't point to any lines where it gets discussed, but like it felt so obvious to me why it would be that the mom would try to push her into marrying the diamond jewel, like, or the diamond broker, that like it almost didn't need to be said. Like it was just the clear reason. Yeah.
I did like that kind of complication to the story that like he ultimately saves them, right? He's like, I'll buy your necklace. And then like that kind of obviously carries that weight over the mom.
Yeah.
To be like, well, that's already a good judge of character. He saved us.
But it's also like, I think it's just that I was like shocked at how subtle it was. Cause I feel like a lesser film would like kind of beat you over the head with it.
Like the mom would say a line that like, he would
he's
never
not like our kind or whatever. Just like something really obnoxious. And
but it's funny because wouldn't you say they're also working class because they own a shop? I think she just gives off the oeuvre that she's like, more metropolitan.
I think that they're not necessarily making much more than Guy, but they do make a point of like she mentions him smelling like gasoline. So I think that there's a social difference there of the association of a retail store versus working with your hands. I think even if there's not like a real substantial monetary difference, there's like an unspoken social difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also liked that this movie, nobody's like the bad guy. There's not even really an antagonist. The antagonist is time.
The war,
antagonist
maybe.
is like getting drafted.
Yeah.
But like, her mom pushes her toward one guy, but she also is like pretty headstrong and like clearly, I wouldn't say she's like a pushover ingenue in the way that kind of it felt like, what's her name from American in Paris was?
Oh, yeah.
Like it feels like Genevieve has like interiority.
She has a point of view. Yeah.
Right.
Unlike
actively, like she definitely has scenes where she has like a full like 20 minutes of this film where she's just like crying all over Guy. And like in every scene, it's the same shot of her like leaning on him crying.
Yeah. But even with like the mom though, like even though she's like heavy handing like one person, she still had these lines of like, when Ronald asked for her hand, she was like, well, I don't know how Genevieve feels. And she still gives her Guy's letters, you know, like, I was afraid that she was going to
could have done to do like villainy, but she doesn't.
She doesn't.
She's clearly like, there's definitely like the smarter option
but
here.
You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Almost.
I liked that a lot. And even like she acquiesces a lot of like Genevieve's points back to her. Like she has the thing, they talk about like how she didn't like, so Genevieve comes into the shop and she's like, we're going to get married. And her mom's like, you're not getting this. You're 17 years old.
Insane.
You're not marrying anybody.
Yeah.
Let's all calm. Let's pump the brakes a bit, which is what any normal parent would say to someone who's 17
totally.
years old. And she's like, no, I love him, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, girl, you don't know anything. And then Genevieve is like, but you've told me that you didn't know anything when you married my dad. And she was like, well, that's true. You're not wrong. And then there's a scene later where she like talks about how she was like, I was wooed by a young man before your father.
Yeah.
And like, I just like that. It's like she does understand where Genevieve's coming from, but it is the like, I'm your parent and I've lived a longer life. I know what's happening.
Do you know what else is interesting now that I think about it? Is that there's no scene where they talk about whether her mom should have let her marry Guy. Like, there's no like, oh, well, if you just let us get married, then me being pregnant now wouldn't be such a problem. Like, not that it's like her mom's fault or whatever, but it seems like interesting that they don't discuss whether that would have solved the problem, because it seems like it probably wouldn't have, right? If she and Guy got married and then she got pregnant within the confines of a marriage, he still wouldn't be able to provide for her, right? So like it still wouldn't have really solved the problem.
Yeah, I thought that was another thing that was interesting about this movie too, is that I think another movie would make it would be like the plot is that she's unwed, and like it is part of it.
It is part of it, but it's not,
because it has to be part of it, because when Roland finds out, he's such a good guy about it. It's like, we'll just raise the child as our own, and that'll be what it is.
The point anyway.
Yeah, the plot is that she's unwed, in that then it sets her up for having a decision to make, but it's not about the shame of being an unwed mother.
Yes, and like her mom never. It's like she's like, oh my God, you're so beautiful because you're pregnant. She's not like hiding her away. They're not buying her maternity clothes. Like, it's really a lovely, sweet film in a lot of aspects, in a way that you wouldn't assume that a movie that if you were like told the description of what the film is about, you'd be like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah,
it's a woman who's now we're going to be like, she made a bad choice and blah, blah, blah. And like, it isn't that at all, which is like really touching.
I love the line when she finds out that she's pregnant and the mom's like, well, what are the neighbors going to say? Or like, what if our friends will say? And Genevieve is like, we don't have friends and you don't talk to our neighbors. So like, she's like, oh, you know what I mean? It's so dramatic.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I mean, it's like, it's got a lot of the classic, like mom who won't get off your back energy, but it's not obnoxious. The mom is so funny in this movie. There's so many parts where I was like, she's really hamming it up, and it's so good.
She's really driving those first two parts of the movie. Like, I feel like she's the most lines in this movie.
Yeah. She like leaves after the second part. She's not in the third part when he comes back. She's like sold the shop. But I was like, I really liked her for the first two parts, for sure. I like everyone in this movie. I thought everyone was, even the mailman, even the postman gets some bonjour,
au revoir,
bonsoir. What else did I like about this movie? I thought the kids were cute. Should we talk about the finale?
Oh. I mean, it's all the way that the colors, both in costuming and production design. I mean, I could give you a full book of just like the wallpapers. I actually want a coffee table book of just the wallpapers used in this.
If anyone has ever been curious what the inside of my brain looks like, it is this film for sure.
Well, first we have to talk about just the opening sequence, and it's just this like
umbrellas.
The umbrella. I mean, it's literally umbrellas, and it's like this rain scene that's shot from above with people walking past with different colored umbrellas, and it's maybe the most beautiful sequence I've ever seen put on film.
When they have the line of umbrellas come down, and then that's when the title card, the umbrellas of Cherbourg, I was like, you have to be joking. This is incredible. That felt so that was like the true musical number of this movie.
Yes, it was like the one dance sequence basically, and it wasn't dance, it was movement. It's movement, but like it's
Pina.
It's very Pina. It's very Bogart.
It's really Bogart, to be honest. Humphrey.
So it sort of set you up for
two people are laughing at that joke.
Yeah, it sets you for like a little bit of a different expectation of what the film is going to be like musically. And I definitely want to go back to I want to talk about the music for sure. But yeah, the characters have these like really clear color stories where like the daughter is blue and the mom is pink. And Guy has like whites and yellows, I feel like, and then Madeleine has orange. And they like stay in these color stories, and especially the mom and daughter, like there are rooms in their house that have those colors as the wallpaper. So you can see like what's the mom's space and what's the daughter's space based on the wallpaper. Oh my God. And the hot pinks. I didn't know.
They are the most fuchsia I've ever seen.
I didn't know until after watching the movie that it was an inspiration for Barbie, because I was watching it being like, oh, it's Barbie. This is Barbie. This is the dream house. Blonde girl in this bright pink room is Barbie. So it's amazing that was an actual inspiration.
Yeah.
I was watching it and I was like, it's a shame that people don't want bright colors in their homes anymore. Like, what?
Well, Gen Z is making it maximalist. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Millennials went all gray, everything.
Full beige.
Grayscale.
Grays and beige. Yeah.
Yeah. The colors of
truly the wallpapers are so good. Even like the paint of the walk up to his house, like his house, no wallpaper, right? It's like all painted like sideboards and all painted
and I also
frames.
thought that was a very smart way to, it's still color, but it's a way to distinguish their two social classes.
Social classes, yeah. But like even like the buildings when they're like waiting outside his house and like these just giant walls that look like go on forever of just like these like distressed like yellow and green walls.
Yeah.
Speaking of shots of this movie, and then we can talk about music.
Yeah.
There is a shot in this movie where they are like walking down the street, but they are not walking. They are like gliding down the street. It's clear they're on a dolly, but they're supposed to be walking with the bike. Like you understand that is technically what's happening, but it's the most like cinemagic realism of almost any film we've watched that I was like, and it's never, I don't think they do it at any other point in the movie. It's just this one scene where they're just like, it is the most like emblematic way to show like they're so in love, they're so in the clouds that they're not even like walking on air, or they're not even walking on the ground. They're just like floating above everything with how much in love they are. And I was like, that is the perfect, it like does so much heavy lifting in terms of being like, look how much they love each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, I couldn't believe. I was like, this is incredible.
He had to rewind it because he wasn't sure at first, and then he just saw it that they were just standing still but moving.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, they do these there's just these little things that heighten the film a little bit, but it's not like magical realism. Like nothing happens that couldn't happen, but it just has these little aesthetic moments that bring it to this different realm.
Yeah, it is like it's like a movie. It's like
it's a movie.
It is still like realistic to some degree. Like the whole plot is so realistic. Like it's so like girl gets knocked up by a guy who goes off to war and marries another man. Like that is the most like you could make this in any time, in any country, in any genre, anything. Like this is not a new story, but like the way it's heightened by all the colors and the design and these like little nods and the fact that it's all like recitative, like it's not actual dialogue. It's just so it like makes it really does make it feel like one of the proper like operas that are like it takes like a really mundane story, but then like kind of heightens it to an extraordinary level. I felt like.
Speaking of recitative, I'm going to try really hard to say it right. Should we talk a little bit about the music? Because I did do a little bit of brushing up on the history of recitative.
Oh yeah,
sure,
okay.
Please.
Recitative.
Recitative.
I just can't say it fast.
Yeah.
Recitative.
Tative. There is no S.
Recitative.
Okay. It helps when you try to like sound like my mom.
Recitative.
Recitative.
Okay. It's an Italian word. Okay, so in context, we've referred to it before, but I actually took an opera class when I studied abroad in Rome. So this is where I learned about this. But to prepare for this, I did just pull up the Encyclopedia Britannica entry about recitative.
Great.
Because I know this, and and I said I was going to do more research this year, and I'm slowly working my way back into it. So this is what you're getting from me today. So recitative is it refers to the parts of opera where people are technically singing, but there's no real melody to it, basically. So operas generally are made up of a combination of recitative and arias are the actual songs. I guess I learned from doing a little bit of research about this movie that the song that she sings to him about like, oh, I will wait for you before he leaves for the war is considered like a song, and it has been performed by other people and like redone and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And it does
There's definitely a song There's
Yeah.
like Roland definitely has a song where he like talks about how he loves her.
That was
Yeah.
really the only one to me that sounded like, oh, this
A
is an aria
song,
now.
yeah.
I thought Madeline had a song too that I was like, oh, okay, go off, Queen.
Yeah. But most of the movie, I mean, even those songs are not like, the music doesn't like swell into it in a way that like really clearly marks like, okay, and then this is the aria, right?
Right.
So it's really almost the whole thing. Like the whole movie could just be spoken with these lines. They're not rhyming. They're not like motivated by rhythm. They're just lines that are set to music. So recitative is, as I said, the name for this kind of singing along to things. And the earliest opera, the kind of thing that we've pinpointed is like, this was kind of the first real opera, is Jacopo Peri's Eurydice, which was 1600, which is like so slick to do it on 1600 exactly. I wonder if he had it ready in 1599 and he was like, let me wait. Let me
hold
usher
off.
in a new century.
Yeah, marketing is everything, you know?
Yes, exactly. So Eurydice, which I watched a recording of, like obviously a more modern
you didn't watch the 1600 version?
I did not watch the 1600 version.
1600
I'm so disappointed,
4K
Molly.
video. Eurydice's makeup tutorial on YouTube.
Yeah, I did. I didn't go that far back. So the Eurydice was written almost entirely in recitative arioso, which is a lyrical form intended to communicate the emotion of the text. And then operas in the late 17th century developed this idea of like emotion going into the arias rather than in the recitative. And the recitative is just carrying dialogue and action of the plot. So there are two principal types of recitative, which is recitative secco or dry recitative, which is sung with a free rhythm. So that's like really like what you think of as kind of like pure recitative. And then there's also recitative stromentato or accompanied recitative, which has a stricter rhythm and is more involved. And it's usually what does the bridge into the aria. So if you know the thing that people, I feel like is now like a big thing people like to make fun of on TikTok right now, of the way that the music comes in underneath for musical theater, like the music starts to come in and the person starts to kind of speak in rhythm.
Yes.
It's that
one
bridging.
TikTok girl.
This is my favorite TikTok. I'm going to open it up.
Okay. Share, you don't put it on the shared screen. Now we can do
I'll put it
that.
on the shared screen.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. And that's why I'm can't remember.
And that's stromentato, baby.
Elizabeth, wait!
Wait.
Would it change your mind if I said I was an orthodontist? I'm not just a witch. I'm a witch with HPV, and I'm proud of it. Hey, you listen here, mister! I'm not gonna be an orphan. I'm gonna get adopted. Bye, you rich man. You're never gonna be popular. 'Cause you're a lesbian. I can't live in this small town anymore. I'm gonna move to Boston with my cousin. And where do you think you're going, Grisabel? A kitchen wench is a kitchen wench forever. Claire, I've been thinking, and it's so sad there's no musicals for people who are Australian. I'm sick of always lying and pretending.
I don't think doing an Oklahoma thing.
I don't think that pigeons should exist anymore. All right, men, let's raise a glass. We're British and we're going to war. I cannot be in love. You're my biological nephew.
Oh,
Wow,
God.
the scenarios, the variety of scenarios.
You're my biological nephew. So that is a great example of recitative
Stromentato.
stromentato. Or just like, I think most musicals, when they do recitative, do that version as opposed to just like,
It's
you know, what's a great,
rarely,
what's the other one? Recitative, whatever. What's it
Secco.
called? Secco. That's like when you go to mass and that day the priest is like, oh, we're chanting today.
Oh, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay. It's going to be a longer service.
Yeah.
Mama, I'm feeling a little chant today.
Yeah, sometimes the priest just comes in dry with just some now it's chant and you're just
Yeah.
okay.
And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
Like,
here we
oh,
go.
it's Pentecost. Isn't it? Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for that trip down history lane.
There you go.
How did you like it? How did you think it was effective? What were your feelings about it?
I think that it accomplished, as I was saying, of like these little things that heighten it. I think that it tells you to not view the film as realism, right? It tells you to see it through an aesthetic lens, to view it as an interpretation of reality rather than a sort of like directly perceived reality.
Yeah.
But I also kind of sat there being like, you could just say this. I don't fully know what I'm getting out of you singing it.
Yeah. I definitely felt like it, again, like, I do think there are parts where I was like, oh, this is nice, because I think it like is, there were more interior moments that I was like, oh, I think this is like a good way to like demonstrate that they're like in sync with each other and like stuff like that. But I think it would have, I do think it would have helped more if there were more songs.
Yeah.
And I still really liked it. But that was the only thing, is I was like, I wish there'd been more of a separation between like, and now this character is going to sing.
I think the act breaks and it being 90 minutes helped a lot, because I think if it was longer and there weren't those breaks, I would feel like it's a dirge. Like it just kind of feels like we're just slowly going through. And I did like that it wasn't a lot, but there were a lot of moments that like, they use different like it starts very jazz.
Oh, it's so jazz at first.
Like and then it gets into very much more traditional musical theater, I feel like.
Yeah,
just more instrumental like orchestrations. Yeah,
there's definitely still is jazz influence throughout, and sometimes sometimes the music feels like it's like the accompaniment is doing a lot more than the singing in terms of making it musical. Yeah,
totally. I wasn't like bothered by it. Even when I was like, oh, it's not fast recitative either. Like it could have been a faster film, but I thought every character did such a good job at like kind of not
making it look.
It didn't feel like they were like waiting to like finish their next line or whatever. Like I really appreciated that about it, that it was like
they made it look natural. Like there were moments that I was like, I feel like you are speaking, because it was so close to almost like.
I feel Tom Hooper. If you want to capture people singing live and you want to do this kind of music, you can. But this is the only type of music where that's going to work.
Yeah. Hubert.
I do want to note that pretty much everybody is dubbed by someone else.
Oh, okay.
So Geneviève is done by Danielle Lecari. Guy is done by Jose Bartel. Madame Emery is done by Christian Legrand. And Roland Cassar is done by Georges Blanes.
I'm just wanting to read more French names.
I just wanted to read more French names.
I think it's good that we give them credit, because they're an important part of
flowers.
The film.
They're kind of the whole film.
Yeah. So they weren't capturing the music live, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
So that's what but that's what I was like. I was wondering, like, they were like being recorded singing live, but like so that the singers can dub it and like match to it.
I couldn't tell it could be either way. It could have been the singers had already done it and they're just singing along to the track.
And then that's true.
Because it's so rhythmical. Like it's hard. It would be hard to match. I think it would be harder
to sing over it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Huh.
Like a whole movie is wild.
Yeah.
Of ADR.
But then that would also be such a bizarre process as an actor to like have all of your lines already recorded and just be trying to match the voice.
Yeah.
That would be so interesting.
And the takes are so long. The cinematography, long. This is like, everything is almost like a one shot. Every scene is kind of just one long take.
Yeah.
And that I think really actually aids to kind of the pace of it. And normally you think more cuts means it feels faster. But I think because it keeps bouncing back, like the dialogue keeps bouncing back and forth so much, that I was like, I really appreciated it, actually, that there weren't a bunch of cuts in every scene.
Yeah.
And we just kind of like let the scene breathe in the way that it needed to.
I agree.
Yeah. Something that the music might have forced them into is it did not have the let the air out problem that we often have with films of this era, of like just cut a little bit faster around these lines. Like it didn't feel like there was wasted space in the dialogue.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I think, the music too. I don't even know what I'm going to play I might not play anything in this episode because it's so
I think we should
specific
play
and niche.
Something so that the listeners understand what we're talking about. I think it's hard probably for people to imagine it. Yeah.
s'achève. Oh, tu sais maintenant, ça n'a plus d'importance. Nous avons même tout notre temps. Ce matin, j'ai reçu cette feuille de route et je dois partir pour 2 ans. Alors le mariage, on en reparlera plus tard. Avec ce qui se passe en Algérie en ce moment, je ne reviendrai pas d'ici
But
longtemps.
I thought there were a lot of ways that they used the melody to emphasize like some like asides or jokes. Like there's this one when Madame Emery gets the bill for 15,000 francs that they have to pay in like a week or whatever. And she's like freaking out about it. And she is like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to sell my jewels. And then she like walks by a mirror and she's like, I need a haircut. Like it like the music, her like melody slightly changed to be like a little aside. And it was so stupid.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I thought
they
you
had
were
a lot
going to
of those, I
say
felt.
the joke of when she says we owe this bill and if we don't pay it, they're going to like take our shop. And then her daughter says, why don't you sell the jewels? And she was like, no, I need this in case of an emergency. And her daughter's like, isn't this an emergency?
Isn't this an emergency?
Yes. That's why there's so many lines where I was like, I can hear an actor say, like, I can hear how you read that joke to
Yeah.
get the laugh. Like
Yeah.
it's so the script is like really, it's so, because everything has to be so simplified for it to all work,
Yeah.
that like really aids in how accessible I felt like it was too.
Yeah.
And like the simplicity of the story allows you to kind of massage the edges out into kind of the artistic piece you more want it to be.
Yeah.
Like if they were trying to do a really complicated story, I would be like, you're throwing too many things at the wall. But because it was so clear what was happening at all times, that I was like, there's no way to get lost in this
Yeah.
story. Even with kind of all the opera and stuff that was happening, I was like, no, this is very clear what's going on. It was nice. It's like it's just good. It's like a really good movie.
Yeah.
I really don't have any like critiques of it. Other than I didn't really like the girl who played Madeline. That's the only thing. I thought she was kind of like a wet mop.
I thought that was the character, not the actor.
It might have been. Yeah.
I mean, the actor it was funny because they kind of paint her as like, she's just a nice girl, very sensible because she's a caretaker,
Mhm.
but they hire this like model. Like she's
very pretty.
Yeah.
She's very
so,
French looking.
like, yes, like classic French magazine
Yeah.
like face that I was like, oh my God. And when they were like, she's like crying when he bought the gas station because she's like, I don't know if you still think of Genevieve instead of me or whatever. She's just like crying so beautifully and like stroking his hand. I was like, damn, girl, get your act 3.
I do love the way, and I think this is different than the way like we talked about like the way what's his name? Who's the point of 9? What's the director? Do you remember
Fellini?
what his name was?
Fellini.
We talked about
Contini
Italian.
is his character. Fellini.
We talked about Italian love a little bit when we talked about 9, but there is a way in that I love how the French love. Like the French are like, kind of love is it's our whole gig.
It's our
Yeah.
whole shtick.
I mean,
We just really get it.
I think that love is in some ways universal, but then there are cultural understandings of love and cultural relationships to
Yeah.
love and how important is romantic love in your culture, like that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely. I think Italian, like obviously there are people in France that are more in the Italian way and people in Italy more in the French way, right? But like
Oh,
the
sure.
Italian conception of love is very about like passionate,
Yes.
sort of over the top dramatic gestures. Like that's what I think of as Italian opera.
Yeah.
And French, very simple, but also sweeping. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
something sort of
Mhm.
straightforward about it, but also so
And
Like you are the only
consuming.
2 people in the
Yes,
world.
the only 2 people
in the
there's
world.
no
Yeah.
one else around you.
that was the point of the like sequence where they end up in the bedroom. It's clear that they're like having sex or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 cuts of like the city and no one is
No
in the
one's
city.
around, yeah.
No one's around. And it's supposed to be like they're the only 2 people on earth
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the way again, like when the Hays Code was a thing. I know this is not a movie that had to deal with the Hays Code at
Yeah.
all, but this is a move like all those directors at the time, we like to be like they were so censored, but like they found ways to
Mhm.
say what they were trying to say without
Yeah.
like showing anything really. But
yeah.
that's just what it reminded me of. Okay, music. Okay, can we talk about? And then I think I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't
I think
have
our
any other
last big
topics.
topic is the ant that's dying. I think that's really the thing. I'm just kidding. We have to talk about this ending. girl.
Yeah.
We gotta talk.
We
about
got to talk about this ending.
Okay, first
Because yeah.
we have to talk about her beehive in the ending scene. This hairstyle.
It's incredible. It's 6 wigs.
Incredible.
It's sick.
Stacked on top of her head.
It's Mistress Isabel Brooks
It's
made that wig.
It's
Lady
Trixie
Bunny.
Mattel.
Lady Bunny,
Yeah.
Trixie, yes, they all worked on this wig.
I'm not
It's so
usually
good.
when there's like an elegant older woman, and also she's probably like maybe 25 in this sequence because she got married when she was 17. But like she's older at this point than she was earlier in the film. I'm not usually one to be like, oh my god, this elegant rich older woman. Like I don't have the same level of a gay gasp that you two are going to have. I anticipate, but like something about
you got there.
something about this hairstyle, and like
It's
to
an
some
updo with a
extent.
mink coat.
To some extent, the coat, but like the hair is doing 90% of it
So
for me.
much.
So
The
much.
coat without the hair would
And-
not be.
It's the
the black
hair
ribbon.
with the black velvet
The black
ribbon to
velvet
denote that
ribbon.
she's mourning her mother.
It's-
Come on.
Girl.
Her ribbons. Also, I could do a whole podcast about her ribbons in this movie
Oh,
because they're
absolutely.
so cute.
And
her
the tool wraps that they just were constantly using.
her mother with the pink wrap with the black
With the
dress.
black
I was
dress.
like, I'm
Mhm.
going to die.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I just.
This beehive is incredible.
I don't know that we've ever seen a more beautiful character in any of the movies that we've watched.
Honestly,
Really?
she's so pretty in this. Catherine Deneuve was 19 when they shot this.
Yeah.
She sure looks it, doesn't
She's
she?
the youth really pops off.
But she is I hate to be like, she's so pretty in this movie. Her eye makeup is literally perfect. Her eyeliner starts in like the middle. They do that thing
Yeah.
and then it swoops out. Ooh, it's so good.
I-
I couldn't. Oh,
Okay, I do want to say there's a very funny moment where she's talking on the first date with Guy, or the first date that we see. She's on date with Guy,
Mhm.
and she says something about like, should I wear makeup? And then she says like, oh, maybe I should put a little right here, and then like gives her a little kiss right there. That's really cute.
mhm.
But you're wearing full eyeliner. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
what scam you think you're pulling. Like men are dumb about women wearing makeup, but like you're wearing a full black cat eye. Like what are you talking
Yeah.
about that maybe you should wear makeup?
I love those posts on the internet where men will be like, why can't I hate when women wear too much makeup like this? They should wear makeup. They should wear no makeup like this girl.
Yeah.
And then it's a picture of a girl in full makeup.
Full drag. Yeah.
Full drag. And they're like, look, she looks so natural. Girl, what are you talking about? Men are stupid.
Men are so stupid.
I do
so
love when
dumb.
she pulls out the little compact. It's literally just a loose mirror. And
It's like
she's
a
just
little mirror. It's so good.
I do love that scene though, because they're like skipping along the tracks that I was like, oh, this is so young love. Like it's
Yeah.
I know.
so-
They really capture that energy of like that first like genuine
Yes.
love where you're like giddy about everything.
and obviously it helps that she's beautiful, but also he is
he's so
gorgeous with
attractive.
Yeah.
his brown eyes.
When he goes to
Oh,
work and he hadn't shaved, I was like, who cares?
who cares?
He
You're like, you're
is-
unkempt and drunk. I'm like, girl,
I'll sober you up, honey.
Uh-huh.
Come over
I'll
here.
be Jenny. Jenny was like, girl, come over to my damn.
Oh,
room.
yeah.
Shut up.
Good for Jenny.
Good for Jenny.
Okay, so she has this beehive. The other thing I want to say about this beehive
She-
before we move on.
A beehive walks into a gas station.
Beehive walks into a gas station, walks up to the bar. The beehive is also like, it is not what I think people think of nowadays, where it's like one
straight,
kind of big
Tall.
Oh,
piece.
yeah.
The Shea
no.
Coulee beehive.
It is like it's curled individual pieces,
Uh-huh.
Right.
and you can see like the space in between some of the. It's almost like it's like her hair was curled and then she piled it into a
Yeah.
beehive, as
Yeah.
opposed to like it's structured as a beehive.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
We
thought it
gotta we'll find
I
a
couldn't
picture and put
believe-
it in the show notes. We gotta do this. Hold on.
we gotta.
Keep talking.
And then the mink coat. I'll say it. I think fur should still exist.
Adam.
I think what is it called? Heirloom fur? No, what is it? Where it's like
Ethically,
Vintage
no, not
fur.
ethic. Vintage fur. I think
Yeah.
that's right. Where it's like we're not making new fur, but like they're already made, so just
Mhm.
wear them. I think that's fine. She's so chic. She looks great. She has her little daughter with her in the front seat. We have to talk about it being A, France, and B, the 60s. So she definitely smokes while pregnant in this movie.
and it's so.
Which I was like, sure. Yeah.
It happened, and
course
we were
you
just like,
did.
of course.
She has like a glass of wine in front of her at the dinner, at the king cake dinner. That was also very funny.
I do want to say, like, it's funny that there's a moment where her mom says something about her smoking while pregnant. And then I was like, what did people think was the deal with cigarettes in the 60s? Like, part of me was like, wait, did you even know enough that it's bad that she is smoking while she's pregnant? But it's very like, don't do that, but like not a big deal. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just was
It's so weird because people were dying of cancer. Like, it's not like it wasn't. I mean, Walt Disney dies in 1966 of lung cancer. So like, it's not, and he wasn't like the first man to die of lung cancer in the history of the world.
Yeah,
I just don't
mean,
think
they
it
might
was-
not have known that it was from the cigarettes. I mean, people have had cancer since the dawn of time, right?
Oh, allegedly, but I think it's all because of the vaccines, Molly.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really what's
Let's
going
not
on
dive into
here.
that any more detail.
So she gets out of the car. Oh, so he comes over and he's like, oh, they see each other.
They see each other.
It's their first time seeing each other in 4 years.
And I was actually shocked that there wasn't a big reaction. I thought that she was going to be distraught. I thought that he was going to like be frozen and like the daughter will like have to like, hey, mom, or something. I was like,
especially because she pulled up to get the gas and then he sees her and then he says something that like indicates like, why don't we go into the garage, right? And so
Yeah.
you kind of
She says it's cold out here, and he says, let's go into the office.
Yeah.
so like
Leaves their kid in the car.
you see that and you think like, oh, they're playing it cool out here, and then we're gonna have the big dramatic thing in
inside.
like they're setting you up for
They're
like,
gonna,
and
like,
then it's gonna get crazy once we go into the garage.
Yeah.
And it does not do that.
It does not do that. They're just like, are you happy?
But I think the way that this moment works, and the way that you believe that they're not lying, I don't believe they're lying to each other.
No.
We haven't obviously seen her since she left.
Right.
So we really don't know what's happened to her. But like the way they've set Roland up is like, he seems like a great guy. Like there's no reason to believe that she doesn't like him or he's mistreating her or blah, blah, blah. And they do a really good job of, after Guy comes back and he starts like meeting up with Madeleine and he asks her, and she has the scene where she's like, I don't know if you actually love me or if you're just distraught over losing Genevieve.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I'm not. And then they have, before she drives up, this is the best part. This is the best decision this movie makes. Before they drive up, they have the start of the scene be him and Madeleine before Madeleine takes their son out to go look at the windows, the stores, the Christmas windows.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so sweet and loving by this Christmas tree. And you can see that he's clearly enamored with her. Like he's full, like there's no, my life could be better if blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So it sets up that this moment is going to be just like two people meeting each other exactly where they are at in this moment, reminiscing about the old time, maybe saying a goodbye. And then that's like, we're never going to see each other again. And I think that's the poignancy of it, is being like, life is not one thing. You can live so many lives during your life. And I think that was like the beauty of that moment, was being like, and that was when we were young, and not even like we were young and foolish, but just like, those were people that we once were, and we're not those people
There
anymore.
is no sense of regret at all.
Yes.
in
No.
this.
Yeah.
Not and it's important to be like, it's not a sense of regret that they missed out or that like they are with the wrong people now. There's not a sense of like, I wish I was back with you. Like, it's just like, I'm so glad we had what we had, almost. And that's truly it.
And so interesting that he also he says he doesn't want to meet the kid either. Like
Yes.
there's no sense of like,
That's
but
huge.
that's my kid in there or something.
Yes.
He's just
Right.
like, no, like, you know what? That like ultimately it's not really my kid. Like I'm not raising that kid. Right.
Right.
So that just like ability to just let go and say like, it's okay. And like, we both ended up with people that are fine. Or better than fine. Like I mean, Guy is definitely happy with Madeleine. It's we don't know enough about how things are going, but like
How she's doing.
she's clearly not unhappy with her husband because she's not coming in with this wistful energy or anything, right? So yeah, this just acceptance.
It's very interesting that she comes in mourning, because you do kind of get a feeling of like, is she regretting it? But it's more of just like, I mean, even she said like, I didn't come back here. Like, this is my first time.
This is my first time coming back through since I left, since I got married.
Yeah.
And I think also, I think it's smart to have her it has to be like post the mom dying, so that because if it was like, oh, mom's still around, then it's like, oh, there is the watchful, like mom's keeping her in this relationship potentially.
It's almost like, no, this is a person who is on her own now.
Well, and
like,
this movie talks about Genevieve's freedom. So she's free to do whatever she chooses.
yeah, even Roland says it.
Even Roland says it. He emphasizes that it has to be Genevieve's choice that he wants that she marries him or not. Like it can't be her mom sending her off to marry him or whatever. And I think that another way this film emphasizes that is by having, even though it hasn't set up that her mother is like forcing her into this relationship or anything, but I think it emphasizes that by being like, she's passed away. This would be the time where she could now be like, oh my God, mom's dead. I see you. Like we can start something again. But she's fully like, this is my life. This is who I am. This is who you are. I'm happy. Whatever. It's not even like we're happy. It's just like, hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
It's contentment.
Yeah.
It's not like
contentment.
the way the French word is for happy is content, which like in English is content. And I think it's just such like the French love to understate the emotion that they are having.
Well, there's also heureuse, right? Which is like more intensive happiness.
Yes. Which I think, well, he says malheureuse at one point. He says like feeling bad when he comes back from the war. Or I think they translated as sadness. But it's so beautifully simple that I was like, it's just like the simplicity of it that makes it perfect. Like it doesn't need to be a whole dramatic moment for it to still be as touching as it is.
So I did look it up real quick. Roland's character is a character in the movie Lola. He's like the second person that Lola is picking between. It's like an old flame or Roland, and she doesn't pick Roland.
That's so
this
cool.
is like continuing Roland's story.
So it's almost but if it's old fling versus new fling, it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
Where this movie is the new fling that gets chosen instead of the old fling. I wonder what the third one is.
There's a sense of like, I know how this goes watching him.
Yeah.
Like he's not like pushy at all.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
it's insane that he's not.
It's crazy. He comes back after being like, I was away for 3 months or however, maybe it was just a month. And he's like, I've been thinking about her nonstop and I wanted to ask for her hand in marriage. And it's like, you've never had a real conversation in your life. Let's all
You really didn't say anything to her.
But it is nice that he is like, but I'll wait and I'll come back and we'll see where it goes. And if she says no, she says no. But if she says yes, she says yes. It's crazy, but it is like sweet and very gentle.
I just want to go back to the finale and being content. And it's making me think about a conversation I had recently about like not pursuing happiness in your life, that's like kind of a recipe for disaster, to like think so hard about like whether you're happy all the time, and that it's better to have a life that's like meaningful to you. And then like happiness comes with that. But that if you're always like chasing happiness and thinking about happiness, like it's always going to be falling short of that.
Yeah.
And so it's better to like let the happiness come to you and be grateful when it's there, but like not spend your whole life being like, am I happy right now? Is this what happiness is? Is this the happiest I could possibly be? And like, I think a lot of other cultures critique Americans for being way too obsessed with that. Like I have to be like level 10 happiness all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's that like destination trap where you keep thinking like the grass will always be greener, and then you keep getting to that point and you're like, no, it's not. There's still more. And like, it is very American. So it is kind of, it's such a wild concept for us when you just see people like, I live a good life and that's fine. Like I don't need to live in the like extreme version of this.
And it doesn't have to be my best life either. I think that's also the thing that like we kept expecting like a comparison in the last scene, would it have been better if we had stayed together or gotten together or whatever. And I feel like these characters are just like simply not interested in the comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even if you think about
which
like,
is what La La Land does. La La Land shows you the comparison of what it could have been, but it does end the same way, like, where she leaves and they're both perfectly fine with where they are.
But I do think that plays into more of like the American audience watching La La Land, because they want to know, they want the fantasy of like, we're so obsessed with the fantasy of level 10 happiness. You know? So it's like, show us what it could really be.
And that's the whole American Paris ballet as well, is him fantasizing about the comparison of what he imagines his life would be if she came back. And then she does. And who knows? We never know in American Paris. How does it compare to
how it goes after
elaborate fantasy that he had? Right. Yeah.
I liked that this movie did not take place in Paris either. I liked that it was like just a city in one of the
hamlet outside.
City.
I do like that he does kind of achieve a dream of this like gas station. Like it's a dream that he originally talked about with her. It's like, when we get married, I'll start my own gas station and we can work there. And he still ends up having that opportunity to do that. Even if it's not with her, he's still very content with what he got, because he got to achieve the dream that he set aside for him.
Yeah. And there's a real way that this movie kind of treats him really, I think there are characters who like are unfair to him. Like I do think like the boss at the mechanic store or whatever is like a little unfair, but also like he's not doing a great job. He might have fucked up this guy's car.
Yes,
We don't know.
without this,
I know, yeah.
But I do think the movie itself is just like, and now he's depressed, and then his aunt dies, and now he's gonna like use that to like kind of refocus
like a
and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's like a blessing in disguise. Yeah, I just think this movie treats him with so much like respect and kindness too, as like a character in a way that, and it's not overly like the way Americans, I think, would show someone who had come back from the war. It's not, it really is just like, oh, he was away for 2 years. And yes, he was at war, but we don't get any scenes of the war. He talks about how he went to the hospital.
It's just a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like, oh, he's extra special because he did go to war or something like that. We have to talk about the goofy ass French sailor outfits, because what are these hats, honey? I love it. It's so, but it doesn't feel like kind media in the way that we've had a lot of conversations about
like
kind
earnest,
media either.
Yeah.
It is, it's not cynical in any way, but it's not it's not saccharine at all. Like it looks like it should be. It looks like a fully saturated,
it looks like the sequence
world.
of La La Land at the end, where it's just like the kind of like the happy fantasy of what it could be.
Yeah, the movie aesthetically like looks like a candy store.
Yeah.
But it really is just, it's so, I don't know, realistic in the way that everyone is allowed to just have the feelings that they're having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, I think I'm talking myself into loving it more than I did when I finished it.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more I'm like, it just is so.
But this is what I was talking about, of like, I wasn't like having a great time watching it, but I feel like I'm going to think about it a lot as time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like it had a lot of like, it was like profound in kind of what it was saying about.
Profound in just like the trueness of life.
Yeah. Just like the way it like captures a lot of like kind of the way that life is like messy and not perfect the way we all want it to be. But in the end, you have to like live with what happens to you.
What happens to you, yeah.
I always told my students in Intro to Theater that they were going to hate reading Waiting for Godot, but they were going to love discussing it. And it was always true. Like sometimes the thing that is the best to think about later is like not a good experience to actually consume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But it wasn't like I was like slogging through the movie.
Yeah.
It was just like, I'm just watching.
This is not a Godot experience. This is not that
this
level.
Is not a Beckett.
I'm just saying as another example of something that is sometimes just the really good art is like not always easy to, it's
not candy. Sometimes it is like a full meal with vegetables that don't taste great, but afterward you feel great when you had the salad.
Yeah.
Adam had a salad today.
I had a salad for lunch. It did have fried chicken on it, so I don't know if it really counts, but it was good. Yeah, I don't really know if I have anything else to say about this. This is like, first of all, I can't believe I'm going to say this. If you're listening, Robbie, this was a great recommendation, and I'm very happy I watched this movie.
It's just very funny because Adam and Robbie have opposite tastes. Period.
My taste is good, and Robbie's is bad. That's the general taste.
That's right. They just don't have the same tastes. Period. They don't like the same things.
It's true.
So it was very nice for him to lend an olive branch lend an umbrella.
Yes, the umbrellas.
I also love the novelty that the store is just
selling umbrellas.
Beautiful umbrellas.
It's an umbrella store. That's very French, though. They love just a store that does one thing. And we're the best at doing the thing we are good at.
Yeah.
No department stores here. Although there are department stores for France. Okay, we're moving on. Do we feel like we've got it?
I think so.
Can we figure it out?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, critics. So unfortunately, I think all the ones I found in their long form are they are not original to when this film came out. So they're all kind of reviews that are like looking back at like re-releases or like a Criterion collection or whatever.
Okay.
So they're going to be it's not going to be like a true like, oh, this is the first take on this film. Okay. First of all, it has a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's certified fresh.
97.
97. It might be one of the highest ones it's definitely the highest we've watched so far this year. It might be one of the highest we've watched in Shogaze history. Tom Dawson from the BBC writes, the magic here lies in the fluid oh my God. I'm having a stroke.
Try again.
The magic here lies in the fluid choreography of the actors, in the elegance of Jean Rebier's camera work, and in Bernard Evian's ravishing production design, which combine to invest everyday settings such as an umbrella shop or an Esso garage with romantic yearning. Deneuve is luminously beautiful throughout, looking fabulously chic, even in a maternity dress, while Demi himself pops up in a cameo asking for directions to the paint shop in a film awash in primary colors. That's so funny. That's the director. The guy who comes in is like, where's the hardware store?
Next door.
That's funny. There's one thing I wanted to say. Okay, going back really quick. So sorry. Another way that they do the class distinction between Guy and Roland is Guy works at a garage, but he rides a bike. But Roland like comes up and drives away in his like really nice car. That was another way that I was like, oh, it's pointing out to the different subtleties. This is from Peter Bradshaw at The Guardian. I'm so sorry for pulling a Guardian quote. I want to apologize in advance. But Deneuve brings to the other thing too. So what I do, here's my methodology in case nobody knows how I do this. Okay. I go to Rotten Tomatoes. I look at their percentage. Then I click on the top critics, and then they'll have little blurbs. They're like one-line blurbs from the critiques. I don't look at anything of like whether they give it a thumbs up, whatever. That doesn't matter. That's not real. They usually have a link that says link to full review. I click here for full review, and then I would say this time especially, 95% of these links were dead on arrival. They are 404 page not found. Yeah. And we have to, I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. Some of these things have to be in perpetuity. Like they have to live someplace permanently. Like we can't keep changing. It's so frustrating. Okay.
Let's hope that they're in a real archive somewhere.
God, only hope.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian writes, but Deneuve brings to the film her own subtly erotic discontent and muted sadness. There is a great moment when Roland says to Geneviève that she reminds him of a painting, A Virgin and Child I saw in Antwerp. Of course, that ill-chosen and unromantic remark is supposed to show how cold, how bold, bloodless and unpassionate Roland is compared to Guy, the sexy blue-collar guy who works with his hands as opposed to this wealthy, well-traveled art connoisseur. The irony is that he is right. The sad, hollow-eyed, pale Deneuve really does look like a sacrificial figure in a religious painting. She has an intensity that is always on the verge of being wrong for this movie, yet without it, the umbrellas of Cherbourg would be simply sucrose. And Vernon is good as her mother, Madame Emery, candidly excited by the handsome and wealthy Roland and perhaps attracted to him herself. And why not? Vernon was only 39 when the film was made and Michel was 35. The script rather callously talks about her dying only a few years later as if she is very old. This is a very controlled movie, not availing itself much the freedoms made available by the new wave, although there is one real coup. Pregnant Geneviève is trying on bridal veils in a store, and there is a startling hard cut to her in the marriage ceremony itself, as if it has all happened in a dream. Molly. There is a sequence in this movie where the camera pans through a bunch of mannequins in bridal veils.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end of the shot is
she is still, and then she moves
still with the veil.
How did we feel?
How did I feel about this? When this happened, I thought of you.
RJ was like, "Oh, Molly just turned
this movie off."
Okay, Molly never saw the ending of this movie. She was just improvising her way through the whole conversation.
I was just passing my way through.
She was like, "Oh, what car scene at the end? What gasoline station?"
Of all the mannequin sequences that we have endured, this was definitely the least upsetting. But I did not know why it was there. It didn't feel necessary, and it didn't feel fair to me on a personal level.
It was the specificity that it was panning through different mannequin heads and veils to reveal her, when in the other ones it's like she's trying on a dress. Like, couldn't she just try the veil just like being fitted for
I don't know
a
what it
veil.
was even conveying. Like the point was like he could have married anyone and he picked her. Like I didn't quite know what the scene was trying to get at with the mannequins.
It felt like it was like they knew you were gonna watch
They knew I would watch it. How many years
specific
later?
things.
80 years
Yeah.
later. And they needed to put that scene. Like why?
That's a great. Who
No one
knows?
Who knows?
Okay.
No one knows.
Well, that's the Jacques Demy estate. Why he chose to keep that.
I did also like. There's a moment in the film when she's like, what do our friends and the neighbors think about you being pregnant?" And she's like, "We don't have friends, and you don't talk to the neighbors." And then when she gets married, the only person at the wedding is her mother.
So it was like, yeah,
So,
justified.
Yeah. You did tell that joke earlier, just so you know, when you're editing, but
I think RJ told it,
Oh,
so I
okay.
did it a little better. Steve Davis from the Austin Chronicle writes, "The true genius of Demy's bittersweet film, however, is in its contextual artifice. The almost otherworldly sensation of constant song, thankfully this restored version of the film is no longer dubbed, creates an alternate universe of communication while the film's dominating color schemes, 60s hues of saturated pink, chartreuse, fuchsia, and cornflower blue, stylistically define The Umbrellas of Cherbourg as an ersatz Hollywood 50s musical in which the Technicolor is a couple of shades off. The visuals alone in this film are a trip. Characters' clothes match the color of the wallpaper in a room. The building on the streets of Cherbourg are brightly tinted as if in a Fauvist painting. In the film's last scene, in which the separated lovers are reunited on a snowy evening years after each has married someone else, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg takes on an even more dreamlike quality. Taking place on what appears to be a soundstage, but is not, the scene plays as if time and space were somehow disembodied from the reality, the falling snow looking like that in a delicately shaken globe. In this coda, Demy realizes a world in which resignation and regret about what might have been is an accepted fact of life. It's enough to make you sigh and maybe even tear up."
Wow, I didn't know that it was not on a soundstage
Yeah.
because it felt that way, right?
Yeah.
It felt like this feels so just like a picture come to life or still.
Can we also have a moment just to acknowledge how romantic snow is? Like,
Ugh.
maybe I'm pining for it, having moved to California, but like, I have complained before about the romantic holiday movie explosion that's happened because I feel that Christmas is not supposed to be a romantic holiday. It's meant to be a family holiday. But where they get me is with the scenes where people kiss in the snow, because there is something about
Something.
There
because
is nothing better
Yeah.
than kissing in like thick, fat snowflakes
Yeah.
falling from the
I
sky.
think it's because snow has this effect of making the world very quiet, and so it really amplifies
Yes.
the "you're the only two people in the world" sort of
Yes.
sensation, right? Oh,
My
Okay.
other favorite thing about snow is when it's covering everything and the sky and it's still snowing, so there's clouds up above, and then you have all
It's
the
just
street
bright.
lights. It's so bright outside, even if it's like 3 a.m.
Mhm.
It's so the light is reflecting off so many things that it looks like it's like daytime almost. Ugh,
Yeah.
I love it. But I also I think it's so fitting to set it in winter
yeah.
too, because there's like the
finality of like this is the end of the year.
the,
So
the
there's-
season is our
Yeah.
season is over.
Yeah.
And winter is very much a time of reflection because you're like inside a lot and you're not like out
Mhm.
doing stuff. You're
Mhm.
just thinking about what's happened in the past, really, in the winter. And so
Yes.
it's a very good time for a reflective scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Good movie.
Good movie.
Okay, on Letterboxd, 4.1 stars out of 5. Amanda says, "Romanticizing leaving my child in a freezing car as I gain closure with an estranged lover." Patrick Williams gives it 4.5 stars and says, "Jacques Demy. With all the pretty colors and singing, you'll think it's nice and happy, but the twist is, sips glass of wine. C'est triste." And Brendan O'Hare gave it 4.5 stars and said, "Have to imagine the umbrella store wouldn't have had money troubles if they sold more than just umbrellas."
There were moments of she was just like shopping. Like, look at all these baby clothes that I bought you. I'm like, shouldn't you be?
when she goes, when they just like, she's like, "Oh, it's time for lunch," so they
She
just
closed
close
the
the
shop
store to go
and go-
upstairs and have a full like harvest lunch. I was like, I gotta get out
I
of
love
America.
what do you
I
expect?
have to get out of
My
America.
It's two
God.
women in charge of money. They simply don't know what they're doing, obviously.
Well, that's what we're saying. Molly.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let RJ go first. Who is your MVP?
My MVP is, let me get the name right. Let me get those names right.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
this one?
Bernard Evin The production designer, because I am in love with these wallpapers. I am in love with just the apartments, just the story being told with all of the locales. I mean, the gas station at the end feels like a perfect snow globe.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of like, you see, like they're having their family Christmas in the lobby of this gas station, right? Like it's so warm and happy, even though it's a very economical, pragmatic space. I love the stories being told between the two houses of Guy and Genevieve's, and it's great. I love it.
I can't. There's not enough I can say about the wallpaper alone.
Yeah, my honorable mention are the costumes for all of these shoes, all of the like monochromatic looks that they gave all of these characters. They're just so perfect because it blended so perfectly in the production design,
and especially now. That 60s look is so timeless.
Yeah.
The way we think of it now, that it almost is like perfect the way it like this movie looks, and like it's the 60s like kind of minimal, like just line designs, like there's no embellishment. It's so simple and clean cut. It really matches the kind of the tone of the film as well. It's so good. Molly,
the hairstylist who did this beehive, I gotta give it to that person.
Absolutely.
Don't know their name, don't know anything about them. Sure.
Okay, you can keep talking though about it if you want.
Oh, I think I said everything I wanted to say about it when we talked about that scene.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second then. I thought you would take
I'm not taking any pressure off you. I absolutely would never. I would never help you in any way, Adam.
If I will give a performance, I think I'm going to give it to the woman who plays Madame Emery.
Really?
Yeah, she's my favorite performance in this movie. I like all the performances, but she is my favorite performance in this film. I think it's hard to deliver comedy without being able to land punchlines in the rhythm that you need to land a punchline. And I still like laughed at the lines.
Yeah.
I thought she was good. So the makeup department, the makeup artist was Christine Fornelli. And usually makeup hairstyling is one kind of combined thing in movies. So I'm going to say it's probably Christine Fornelli.
Fornelli. Whoever had the vision for the hair and then whoever executed it, A+ work. Best hair I've ever seen. Who's your MVP, Adam? What?
Catherine Deneuve had her own.
Those are her own dresses. She's credited for the dresses in this film.
Stop.
That's
amazing.
Glamorous.
That's glamour.
That is glamour.
That's glamour.
That's real glamour.
Okay. You don't know glamour, honey.
At 19? Oh my God.
I would say mine is really boring, but I think it would be crazy of us to not say it. I think it's Jacques Demy. I think this is, if a director's job is to unify all of the aspects of a film into one cohesive through line, it is so perfectly done. You could tell me that he did every aspect of this film and I'd be like, well, that makes sense because it's such like a clear vision of what this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think the screenplay really works, and I love the simplicity of the story and the way that, because it's so simple, as I said earlier, you're allowed to like play with it more. I just think it's like such a clear artistic vision that is executed nearly perfectly that I really don't have I have nothing to say about it other than congratulations. This would be a lot of people's like best work they've ever done.
Yeah.
If they made this movie.
Yeah. Palme d'Or
winner. The Golden Door. The Golden Palm? The Golden Door?
Palm.
The Golden Palm. Okay, Molly, what is your closer?
My closer, because we talked about the fact that there is technically music in this, but it kind of almost doesn't need to be there. Pick a realist film that you like, that exists, that you want to see redone in a recitative, visually stunning style.
A realist movie?
A realist
movie? Or just piece?
A piece that falls into realism.
Okay.
That you think this sort of like slightly heightened musicalized version would be an interesting take.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Are you going to say You say Call Me by Your Name.
No, I'm not gonna say Call Me by Your Name, but I am gonna choose. There is a South Korean show
Okay.
that was a BL.
Oh.
It's called The Eighth Sense. It's about two college kids who join the surfing club and fall in love. It's really good. I highly, highly recommend it. It's probably one of the best shows of 2023, in my opinion. I would choose that because it felt similar to this kind of, honestly,
Yeah, totally.
in the way that it's very not slice of life, because that is really kind of a different meaning, but really, really just real, simple, like two kids meet. One has like lost his brother, and so he like kind of views this younger guy as like kind of a proxy new brother figure for him to take care of, and then he almost loses him in like a surfing accident together, and they kind of how they move on from that and end up together is very sweet. It's really good. Great. Show's great. That's my recommendation for this great nation. RJ, are you ready, or do you want me to go to
Yeah, I
Molly?
have like two ideas. One is one of my favorite movies of all time, The Farewell. It was the Awkwafina movie of like their entire family is kind of like pretending to have a like a celebration for the grandma because they're not telling them that she has like terminal cancer.
Isn't it a fake
basically.
wedding for a cousin?
Oh, it's a fake wedding for, yes. It's a real wedding, but they're basically using that as the reason that why they're making it so big. But in actuality, it's like they're using it to see her for the last time because she's probably going to die very soon.
Yeah.
And Awkwafina's character, because she's like raised in America, there's like a little bit of a culture cost of like, why don't we just tell her? But and it's that like, I think it would be really cool to see that in recitative, maybe even like a Chinese sound,
Whoa.
like a Beijing opera type situation, or like it harkens to that or leans into that. That could be really interesting. The other movie I was thinking about was like, would it be fun to like see Lady Bird do this? Because like Greta Gerwig, I mean, she sees this movie as a big influence on like her filmmaking style. So it'd be interesting to see like one of her movies try this. And Lady Bird is the most realist, I would say. That could be interesting. I think Frances Ha is another movie that she made where it's like a woman who like tries to like be a ballerina. I think that could be interesting too. Yeah.
Molly.
Okay. Have you guys heard of the movie A Man Called Ove?
I've heard of it. Yes.
Some
Yeah.
I think
familiarity.
I've heard of it.
Okay. So
Is it, who's the main guy?
Tom
Who's the
Hanks
actor?
is in it.
Oh, it's Tom. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's the most likely familiar entry point to what I'm about to explain. So Frederick Bachman wrote that novel, and he also wrote another novel called Anxious People. And that novel I really loved. And then Netflix made a Swedish like mini series adapting that book. And I think that the book Anxious People has a very humorous, sort of lighthearted core to it. The concept of it is that there were people who were at a condo that was being shown, like an open house for it, and then they get taken hostage. But the whole novel is told after the hostage situation is resolved, as people are giving interviews to the police, and they're very clearly obfuscating about the situation, and you don't know why it is that the hostages aren't being honest about what happened. And so it's this like fun mystery, but like no one was hurt, right? Like it's not. But when I watched the TV version, it felt so serious. It felt like so not fun, so not lighthearted, that I would love for someone to redo an adaptation of the book with like a lot more of the fun, fantastical elements, and to have a musical, visual sort of focus on it. I think could be a really fun way of approaching that book.
It's Swedish.
It's Swedish, yes.
Swedish. Do you remember the movie that was like they thought they were all going to die in an avalanche, and then it didn't happen, and then they made an American version of it with
Julia
Louis-Dreyfus and Will Ferrell. I think that the same thing kind of happened where like the original movie was more like not farcical, but like it's supposed to be lighthearted because it's like people they're like commenting on like they thought their lives were going to end, so they do crazy things, and then it's like nope, nothing happened, so I have to live with it. And then I think the American version was like more serious. Like
the weird thing about this book / TV show was that the book is Swedish, but the TV show was also Swedish. So it wasn't a cultural difference, unless it's just that like maybe the American translation was like a way different tone than this original Swedish novel, and I misunderstand what the author was getting at. But like the book to TV show shouldn't have been a cultural misunderstanding.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sounds
That'd
cool.
be fun. Yeah.
Anxious people.
Yeah, I would recommend that book if anyone's
Who's the writer?
Frederick Bachman.
Great.
Yeah.
Michelle Bachman's husband.
Spelled differently. Otherwise, I would say
Okay.
absolutely.
Was she Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, Molly.
Like northern exurbs.
Oh,
The
sure.
cities. Yeah.
I just had someone I work with who works in real estate.
Uh-huh.
I had to explain to him what exurbs were.
Yipes.
He thought I made up the term. And I was like, no, he was like, anyway, it was Cody.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on this, journée
Into Cherbourg.
Cherbourg. Cherbourg is at did you look up where it was?
It's like the north. It's like right in the channel.
Yeah. Is that Brittany? That's Brittany, isn't it?
I don't know where Brittany is.
I think it's the tip of Brittany. Anyway, great. It was great. We recommend.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
We recommend for sure.
90 minutes. It's currently on Max,
But you don't know with Miss Max.
but you don't know. I mean,
you really
by the time
don't
this
know with
episode
Miss
comes
Max.
out, we don't know what's going to be going on.
Yeah.
So, I have nothing to sing.
Nope.
So bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgaze. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgazemoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
He entered a world where fantasy is real, where he could be anything he wanted, and where he would discover the most dangerous temptation of all.
Come and get me, boys. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. I believe you were expecting me.
Yes. Silly. Think you would fall in love with someone like me.
I can't fall in love with anyone and make men believe what they want to believe.
Never knew I could feel like this.
I believe in truth, freedom, and above all things, love.
Like I've never seen the sky.
You're gonna be bad for business. I can tell.
I am willing to provide the financial resources to make you a star.
You don't have to wear that dress tonight.
I require a contract that binds Satine to me exclusively.
He could destroy everything.
I don't care. We have each other.
Make Christian believe you don't love him.
You'll fight for me.
Hurt him to save him.
Whatever happens, no matter how bad things get, we love one another.
Kill the boy.
This story is about love at the Moulin Rouge.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Evolving Worlds. The Ampliverse.